Sonnet 30 by William Shakespeare is one of the 154 sonnets within his literary repertoire. The sonnet was first published in the quarto in 1609 and forms an integral part of the Fair Youth section in Shakespeare's collection of sonnets, dedicated to expressing his profound fondness for an unidentified young man. Although the precise date of composition for Sonnet 30 remains uncertain, scholars generally concur that it was crafted between the years 1595 and 1600. Sonnet 30 belongs to the initial grouping of sonnets, specifically Sonnet 1 to 126, which are widely believed to revolve around a fair young man. This young man, referenced in several of Shakespeare's other sonnets, is portrayed as an attractive individual with admirable qualities and a seemingly endless array of virtues. While some interpretations perceive Shakespeare's relationship with the young man as homosexual in nature, it is also plausible that the sonnets regarding the fair young man primarily emphasize the depth of male friendship rather than romantic love between a man and a woman. The original 1609 volume of sonnets is dedicated by the publisher to a certain Mr. W.H., who is often associated with the fair young man. Various candidates have been proposed for the identity of Mr. W.H., including William Shakespeare himself, as well as individuals such as William Hammond, William Horton, Henry Walker, William Hughes, William Herbert, William Hathaway, and Henry Wriothesley, with initials reversed. The sonnet starts by depicting the speaker immersed in reflections of past defeats. The speaker mourns over personal failures and inadequacies while also directing attention towards the theme of departed companions and lost romantic partners. Throughout the sonnet, the narrator employs terminology rooted in legal and financial realms, utilizing words like sessions, summon, dateless, and numerous other legal terms. This choice of language gives the impression that the narrator is meticulously cataloging their own sorrow and injecting an unhealthy dose of guilt into the narrative. The poem retains an abstract quality wherein the act of recollection itself becomes a central source of tension. However, at the midway point of the sonnet, the speaker's tone undergoes a transformation. The conclusion takes on a jubilant quality, as if reminiscing about the cherished friend brings about restoration and prosperity rather than a sense of loss. The opening line of the sonnet introduces the idea of Shakespeare engaging in recollection with the phrase "sessions of sweet thought." According to Stephen Booth, the term sessions alludes to judges presiding in a court of law. Booth further highlights that the word summon in the second line also carries legal connotations, implying being called upon by a court or an authoritative figure to provide evidence or address an accusation. In this context, it signifies Shakespeare summoning his memories to his mind. Additionally, Helen Wendler observes a subtle pause in the phrase "sessions of sweet thought," as Shakespeare's thoughts eventually transition from being pleasant to becoming painful. The subsequent lines, the third and fourth, delve into Shakespeare's feelings of remorse. Booth suggests that the word sigh in the third line conveys a sense of lamentation. The sonnet follows the familiar structure of when, then found in many of Shakespeare's sonnets. The speaker employs this structure to propose that when one event occurs, a subsequent event will naturally follow. In the first stanza of this sonnet, the when clause portrays the speaker engaging in introspection about their past. A rough paraphrase would capture the essence as, "When I reminisce about past experiences while contemplating in moments of serene silence." This vividly depicted instance of sessions of sweet silent thought alludes to the periods when the speaker engages in contemplation, possibly while composing a poem. When such a reflective session leads the speaker to thoughts of sorrow and loss, they let out a heartfelt sigh in response to unfulfilled achievements or unattained desires, lamenting the time wasted on certain pursuits. Once again, it is evident that the when-then structure holds a special place in the repertoire of Shakespeare when it comes to imbuing his speaker's words with dramatic impact. An interesting exploration could be undertaken by focusing on the numerous sonnets that employ this when-then construction. Since the essence of any narrative, whether short or long, relies on the anticipation of what happens next, the when-then construction serves as a miniature stage where this phenomenon unfolds. When readers or listeners encounter a when clause, they instinctively recognize that they are being prepared for the ensuing then part, which provides the answer to the question posed in the when clause: what happens next? This interplay between the when and then clauses creates a sense of anticipation and expectation, shaping the narrative's progression. From line 5 of the sonnet onwards, the speaker reflects on his inability to fully recollect his friends through his own eyes. He then expresses that his friends have vanished into death's dateless night, employing the term dateless to convey the idea of boundless time. It implies that these friends are not necessarily deceased, but rather concealed within an eternal night, an everlasting darkness. Don Patterson characterizes the phrase "death's dateless night" as both legalistic and chilling in nature. As the quatrain progresses, the speaker uses the term cancelled to depict the dissolution of his connections with past friends, as if the time spent with them has expired or been lost. It conveys a sense of everything in the speaker's past having reached its expiration or been fortified. The phrase "mourn the expense" is employed to express the speaker's lamentation over the loss of these precious friends and the emotional toll it exacts, resulting in sorrow. The poignant reminiscences evoke a profound emotional response from the speaker, leading to an outpouring of tears. The speaker continues to recall departed friends, as well as past loves that once brought sorrow but had long since been forgotten. However, when these memories resurface during a session of tranquil contemplation described as sweet, silent thought, they weigh heavily on the speaker's heart, and he experiences a renewed suffering as if the grief had just begun. Despite having moved on from the sorrow and his tears having become infrequent, the intensity of the memories can be so vivid that they overpower his composure, causing tears to freely stream down cheeks that had remained dry and resilient against pain for a considerable time. This thematic group of sonnets does not focus on individuals. The reference to precious friends hid in death's dateless night merely serves as a passing mention. The speaker is not directly addressing those individuals, nor does he emphasize their presence. Instead, their mention actually highlights their absence. Therefore, the assertion that there are no specific persons within this thematic group remains valid, with the caveat that occasional mentions may occur to underscore other phenomena, such as the absence of those friends in the case of this particular sonnet. In line 9, Shakespeare expresses his grief and lamentation regarding his past hardships and sorrows. The phrase "from woe to woe tell over" employs a metaphorical portrayal where Shakespeare's woes and failures are likened to an account book that he repeatedly revisits. The inclusion of the words "heavily" preceding these lines further implies that Shakespeare examines this account book with anguish and distress. Additionally, the juxtaposition of the phrase "fore bemoaned moan" in close proximity to the preceding mention of grievances foregone suggests that Shakespeare continuously revisits and reflects upon his past sorrows, as if he is compelled to review and bemoan them repeatedly. The weight of the speaker's past sorrow becomes so burdensome that they can vividly recount it as if the grief were freshly experienced. He possesses the skill to mold this grief into a poem, enabling him to narrate his sorrowful tale once again. Through his storytelling, the speaker has a power to evoke such profound sense of reality that others can also partake in the emotional journey through his poems. The speaker demonstrates immense confidence in his understanding of his own heart and his ability to transform his grief into art. His memories serve as a raw material, while his intellect and creative genius allow him to capture and express his emotions in resilient and enduring poems. The concluding couplet presents the notion that all sorrows dissipate when the narrator recollects his dear friend. The speaker expresses the idea that the joy derived from the dear friend erases all pain associated with remembrance. David West suggests that the couplet diminishes the significance of the preceding three quatrains by asserting that the mountain of failures can be effortlessly overcome through thoughts of the beloved. Other critics concur, characterizing the couplet as an unexpected surprise or an addendum appended to the poem. Some also critique the couplet of Sonnet 30, deeming it weak, perfunctory, and cliched, giving an impression of intellectual disarray. Despite the profound sorrows that deeply affect the speaker and bring him to tears, as well as the uncertainties arising from the losses he has endured, he finds solace in the realization that his God-given poetic genius is sufficient to alleviate all pain and sorrow. The speaker perceives his ability to compose as a cherished companion or dear friend. The speaker's reliance on his innate talent remains a prominent theme. He consistently demonstrates his awareness of being a remarkable poet, acknowledging his exceptional aptitude for conceiving imaginative scenarios and skillfully capturing them with precisely chosen words, allowing those precious thoughts and images to gracefully dance and sing within his poetic creations.